Baseball's back, baby. It's opening week. We've got Furzy. We haven't come up with a nickname for you, Kyle. Kylesies.
I don't think it rolls off the tongue the way you think that does.
And Toolsies. I didn't think we'd get through the winter. Winter still goes on here, and it's just proof once again why we have a dome stadium in Toronto, Todd.
Look, we're going to have a dome stadium out here in Las Vegas as well, I think for very different reasons, since the only time you'd want to play baseball outside would be April and May. But, Toolsy, what could be better? If you think about going to an A's game, if you didn't have a dome stadium, first pitch, it's 126 degrees. I mean, that would really test the intestinal fortitude of the glorified AAA product that we're going to see on full display on Las Vegas Boulevard sooner rather than later.
You could have misters nonstop on the crowd, like the misters you walk through on the strip.
I'm really wondering, I mean, what the attendance is going to look like, what the demand will be for season tickets, because I know we don't talk a ton of NBA given some of the Raptors struggles, but the big news that came down this week is that Vegas is going to be a NBA expansion destination, taking bids, and I'm sure you guys are trying to get your group of investors together for that $7 to $10 billion price tag. I think basketball will work out here in the desert. I'm a little bit more skeptical on how baseball will fill a stadium for 80-plus ball games every single summer.
Yeah, Todd, when I was out in Vegas with you there, I was speaking to my taxi driver on the way back to the airport, and I never heard a person less enthusiastic. And this was a sports guy. This guy was so pumped about all of the other Vegas teams. He didn't have a whole lot of good to say about the Oakland A's. Not that many people have really had much to say since Jose Canseco was running the pharmacy out there. But, you know, maybe it's the right place for a random team to show up with a stadium full of 25,000 tourists every single night of the year.
You know, funny story, though, on Jose Canseco, Kyle. He still lives out here in Vegas, and he still hasn't lifted legs since he was a member of the Oakland Athletics. So it is all arms all the time. And I'm pretty sure his forearms are the size of my thighs. Whether that's an indictment of me or a credit to Jose Canseco, I'm not quite sure. But look, baseball is always going to be a little bit of a tougher sell. I mean, Vegas is a transplanted city. They're not bringing in a team that's organic to Las Vegas like the Golden Knights, where people could rally around the first professional team. And while the Raiders have been an afterthought, we'll see what the Fernando Mendoza experience looks like with a new head coach. The Golden Knights have taken off more than I ever thought was possible. I think the NBA is a logical fit. You know, baseball finds themselves on the outside looking in, but for the Fisher family, I mean, they're doing it to drive up their franchise value. Would it surprise anybody if a handful of years into being out here in Las Vegas, they decide to sell the team, similar to not what Stan Kroenke did in terms of sales, but takes the Rams from St. Louis to Los Angeles, builds a state-of-the-art stadium, and suddenly the franchise value goes through the roof. The good thing for the A's, at least coming into this year, is they should be a fun team to watch. I mean, a lot of bats that'll fly under the radar unless you're a fantasy enthusiast, but it's a team that should put up runs in bunches, and I think could be a little bit of a dark horse, maybe competing for a wild card spot.
Fun fact, when they were building the Sphere in Vegas, I saw it, and I'm like, that's where the NBA team's going to go because they're building a basketball, which would have made perfect sense.
Kind of true, Toolsy, kind of true. But we're still trying to figure out, honestly, I mean, Vegas, if it's going to be T-Mobile, which I don't think makes a world of sense for an NBA team, or if they're going to have their own venue, maybe a little bit further south on Las Vegas Boulevard, like some of the rumor mill was previously, to try and keep another entertainment district out here, because that's what Vegas needs, another arena to try and fill with B-plus entertainment.
The Toronto Blue Jays, as they start the season, we've talked about this number before, and I think it is laughably low for a team considering what they did last year. Jays win total set at 87.5 for this year.
The big question I have for the Jays, and I think all Jays fans should have similar concerns, is about the pitching staff. Not because they didn't go out and address the need to potentially bring in an ace in Dylan Cease if he can channel what we've seen glimpses of from him in stops along the way, but every starting pitcher expected to contribute for the Jays is on the wrong side of 30. You're leaning on a guy in Kevin Gausman that's 35 years old that you're expecting to be probably your number 2 or number 3. We saw the back and forth with Max Scherzer, who looks like he's throwing a little bit more in the low 90s than what we grew accustomed to when he was at the height of his power. Jose Barrios, will he stay in the rotation? Will he not? Shane Bieber not going to start the season there. So I think so much of the Jays' success and their ability to get to 88 wins or more is predicated on this staff being able to put together enough innings and figure out what you're going to get there. Offensively, I think the team will be more than fine. George Springer, my biggest concern at the top of that lineup. He's not exactly a spring chicken either. And then again, it's also the weight of expectations. You look at the American League East. I'm not a buyer in the Yankees, although I am a Yankee fan. They didn't do a whole hell of a lot this offseason to try and make that team any better. And if what we saw from Aaron Judge in high leverage situations in the World Baseball Classic is any indication, he's not going to deliver in October, regardless of how many MVP trophies he's able to stockpile over the years. I think the Red Sox are overvalued with their win total. I think the Orioles are a little bit of a buy low candidate. And as always, the Tampa Bay Rays will continue to be pesky with a player and a hitter in the middle of the lineup that I think is one of the greatest young talents in the entire game in Junior Caminero.
The Rays are back in the trop.
Yep. And I think that's one thing that'll be interesting to see, because so much of this Rays team was built around a pitching staff that could work in a pitcher-friendly ballpark. Let's see if they get back to playing more Rays baseball than what we saw when they had to play those transitional seasons at George Steinbrenner Field, which was a little bit more conducive to generating offense.
Todd, please explain to me what the New York Yankees have done other than reacquiring the services of Garrett Cole to be favored over the Toronto Blue Jays.
It's the Yankees premium, the Yankees tax, whatever you want to try and call it for this team, where you're always going to have to pay top dollar to try and back them. I will say, Kyle, when you look at the odds, they're very close, at least amongst the top three teams, between the Yankees, the Red Sox, and the Orioles. So while a lot of people may be surprised that the Yankees are the favorite, it's only a few pennies on the dollar instead of a wide gap. It's not like they're being listed as an odds-on favorite to kind of run away with the American League East. But I think books know they're going to get a little bit more of that recreational player gravitating towards the Yankees. There is still some skepticism that can the Blue Jays run it back at the same level we saw last year for a team that finished with 94 wins, despite a run differential only plus 77. So I think this division, in my opinion, becomes one of the more fascinating in all of Major League Baseball, because there's 3, maybe 4 teams that have a legitimate shot to try and assert their dominance in the American League East going forward.
And the Toronto Blue Jays, last we checked, were the third favorite to win the AL pennant.
And I think if you're a Blue Jays fan and you're trying to back this team, in my opinion, the better market to try and get involved in is betting the Jays to win the pennant with a low risk, higher reward upside, because we've seen so many times in the current iteration of Major League Baseball that there's not necessarily a direct correlation between winning your division and winning the pennant. Just get a seat at the table, be playing the best baseball when it matters most in late September, October. So I'd be more inclined to tell people to bet the Jays to win the pennant than I would be to try and tell them to back them in the division.
What about Vladdy Jr.'s home run total? It's currently set at 33.5. He's been kind of a lightning rod all through the end of last season, the playoffs, and even the WBC.
These numbers are so hard when you're trying to make a compelling case to go over the totals for a lot of these players, mainly because you're working against injury and how many games and official at-bats they're going to log. I'll say a handful of years ago, when player props started to really grow in popularity, not just in Major League Baseball, but the NFL, odds makers didn't quite do enough to adjust for the possibility that players could miss extended time. Now what you're seeing is totals that are probably a little bit suppressed. I'm not running to try and bet Vladdy over his total at 33.5, but I don't think it's a slam dunk to try and go under. Very curious to see how he continues to adjust his swing mechanics, but no doubt the marquee player anchoring that middle of the lineup, especially with the departure of Bo Bichette.
Blue Jays opening game is Friday. First ever Netflix game is taking place. It's a big week for baseball. I wanted to touch upon the Ottawa Senators, Todd. You are a massive hockey guy. The Ottawa Senators, out of nowhere, have the final wild card spot in the East.
I'm a big believer in the Ottawa Senators. It was a team I thought that could come out of the All-Star break or the Olympic break, I should say, and start to perform to what some of their underlying metrics suggested. Going into that break, they had the worst save percentage in the NHL. We know about Linus Ullmark that left the team, the rumors about what was going on behind the scenes with Linus Ullmark and some of the Senators in that dressing room. And now you're starting to see them scratch the surface of a team that is tremendous at suppressing shots against, one of the best defensively in the entire league. They're getting enough scoring as they're healthier up front from Brady Tkachuk, Timmy Stützle, Drake Batherson, all contributing. Shane Pinto is performing in a lockdown role as kind of a 2-3-C. So Travis Green has a combination that he can lean on to lock down some of the most elite opposing forwards. The problem that the Senators are running into right now is going to be the injury bug. Let's see when they get Jake Sanderson back out there. If you believe some of the reports coming out of Ottawa, there's optimism that he could return as early as this weekend, maybe against Tampa. I think that may be a bit optimistic for me, but unfortunately they lose one of the other big, minutes eaters on that blue line of Thomas Chabot, who's probably going to miss 4 to 6 weeks with a cross check that he took from JT Miller. Haven't looked at the schedule to see if the Sens play the Rangers again going forward, but you have to imagine someone needs to drop the gloves and go right after JT Miller. But this is a team I'm not sure anybody in the Eastern Conference wants to draw in that first round, and I think they'd be extremely live matched up against the Carolina Hurricanes if that was their draw. And there's a legitimate path to Ottawa getting out of the wild card spots and maybe even finishing third in the Atlantic if they can continue this heater going forward alongside another team that's been white hot since the Olympic break, the Columbus Blue Jackets.
They do not play the Rangers again. Their last 3 games of the season, Islanders, Devils, then Leafs. So that's a fun way to finish.
It is a great opportunity, and the one team that I think could pose some problems in that particular trio is not the Islanders, where I think we're starting to see water meet its level outside of Ilya Sorokin, who, in my opinion, should be the Vezina winner, but probably won't behind Andrei Vasilevsky. It's the New Jersey Devils, who, credit to Sheldon Keefe, this group actually looks capable and competent now that they've basically been mathematically eliminated from playoff consideration.
Looking over at the Western Conference in the NHL, Colorado's still obviously favored to emerge from that, but there's a pretty wide gap between first and second. Do you see any value in a Dallas Stars or a Minnesota Wild out west?
What a glorified pillow fight the Pacific Division has become, that the division leader in the Anaheim Ducks wouldn't even qualify for a playoff spot if they were in the Eastern Conference. In terms of the Central, though, Kyle, that Dallas-Minnesota series is going to be an absolute war. And while I'm sure if you're a Stars fan or you root for the Wild, you're not thrilled with the current NHL format for the postseason, knowing how difficult a road it's been for teams coming out of the Central. But the rest of us that are casual observers or bettors can reap the benefits of what we'll see there. If I'm looking at the teams right now in the Western Conference, the one that actually offers value would be the Utah Mammoth. And the reason I say that with Utah, not because they're going to be favored over the Colorado Avalanche or anything along those lines. Utah finishing in wild card 1, if that's a spot they're able to secure, has the more favorable path to get to the Western Conference Finals running through the Pacific Division. I'd make them a favorite over the Anaheim Ducks if that was the opening round series. I'd make them short underdogs given the home ice that Edmonton or Vegas would have as well. But I think Utah's number doesn't reflect the path that would be in front of them compared to the Wild, the Dallas Stars, and even the Colorado Avalanche, who though may get the fortuitous bounce of being about a $37 favorite if they draw the Nashville Predators, who are somehow playoff relevant, given the fact that the Kraken, the Sharks, and the LA Kings should all be contracted.
Furzy, this generation will never know the pain of a pillow fight, and you are surprised by a pillow that has an old, heavy zipper on it, and you get that. Oh, that pillow fight goes to a different level.
I feel you were the guy, Toolsy, back in the day that was loading up his pillows with loonies and toonies and trying to catch a shot on the side of the head. Or you were bringing the sock with the oranges that you could try and swing. You could kind of load it up almost with those weighted gloves like boxers in the old days. When they started to sweat, they had the plaster that was in there. So those 6 and 8 ounce gloves made it actually feel like you were getting hit by concrete.
See, if those fights ever start here, I am like a ref. I'm feeling the pillows down. I'm like, okay, these are good. We're good. We're good.
What were the things that they used to have? And I'm not sure how popular they ever became. I know they went through a little bit of a run. The inflatable gloves that almost looked like a giant club. They were in bright colors, whether it was an orange or a blue, that you could really decide you wanted to throw punches with. I kind of miss those days, although I'm not sure who I would fight with that. I'm pretty sure if I decided to swing on my wife, it wouldn't end well.
Todd, shifting back to baseball quickly before we let you go. Opening night tonight, all eyes on the Yankees and the San Francisco Giants out in San Francisco. All eyes on Netflix. It's a big, big deal for everyone. Singular focus in baseball. What's a good pick tonight? I need something, buddy.
I'm not itching to lay that $1.20, $1.25 on Max Fried. If anything, Kyle, and I wish it was a slightly later start time out there in the Bay Area to get that marine layer sinking in. I'll make a slight case to go under the total at 7. I think you have 2 aces that are going to be out there. Logan Webb at least got a little bit of that scar tissue pitching in the WBC. The problem that you run into early in the year, if you don't have weather working in your favor, you're going to have starters, even the big name guys on pitch counts, most likely not going deeper than 5 innings. but I will make a slight case, much to Toolsy's chagrin, to root for absolutely nothing to happen for the better part of 9 innings. I'll go under the total at 7.
Speaking of the Giants, out of nowhere, Barry Bonds popped into my Instagram algorithm the other day. I'm like, oh, here's a guy riding a bike next to a body of water. He shows himself, then the water, then himself. And that was it. So it's the new fit riding bikes, Barry Bonds.
How big does Barry Bonds look? Did he look in that Instagram video? Did he look like Barry Bonds circa entering the league as a slight center fielder for the Pittsburgh Pirates? Or did he look at Barry Bonds that needed a custom manufactured hat?
That's what I was going to say.
That grew to like north of like 10 or 11 if we're talking old school.
His head has shrunk down in size considerably.
Well, I mean, his head has shrunk down. Sammy Sosa has gone through a discoloration of pigmentation. But to this day, I believe that neither player put illicit substances into their system. They were just the product of aggressive training in the gym. And that's what gave them competitive advantages as power hitters right there alongside Mark McGwire.
You can't spend an entire show giving us picks, Todd, and then end it with that. Here's his only falsehood from this whole show, folks. But honestly, it's fantastic.
Hey,
what about?
It's 2 truths and a lie, Kyle. It's for everybody else to figure out what are truths and what are a lie. Maybe the lie is I actually like the over in the baseball game. Who knows?
Betting under an opening night, I can't do it. I'm sorry, I can't tell you on that one, buddy. I can't do it. I'll just enjoy the game. Todd, thanks for joining us.